Also, does anybody know the name of this fucking song? I fucking love it. It slaps. I want it. So good. So good.
Are you thinking about joining the military? The Army, the Navy, the Space Force? You may think you have your reasons. Maybe you need money for college. Maybe you think serving is an honorable profession because your grandfather served in Vietnam but doesn't like to talk about it. Maybe you saw Top Gun Maverick and thought that invading the airspace of another nation and bombing them was deeply heroic because the Kenny Loggins soundtrack.
Give me 1 second here. But yeah, no, that there's a lot that went into my wanting to join the military, and I will get into that in just a second. I just wanted to do something real quick. Okay, sorry about that. Um, Back in. So my military service itself was a bunch of different things. So whenever I was young, my grandfather was Army Corps of Engineer, and my family really did respect the military. The right wing things, but like even before then, we were or my mom was a military brat. My dad also had people in the military in his side of the family, but they were further out. And again, my dad's a whole different like kettle of fish. If you want to talk about him, please just ask, and I will be glad to tell you about him in more detail. I just don't want to delve into that ball of like stress and trauma right now for overviews. Um, anyway, so we already did that, and because we were poor, um, I was often told the only way that I was going to be able to get to college is a full ride scholarship or the military. And then 9/11 happened while I was in high school, and I was lazy, so I was already in JROTC. Uh, that means the military was just the choice for a person like me, especially considering by that time I had already checked out of actually putting an effort into my classes and actually trying to get Scholastic Award. Um, so, what's the perfect job for a C student out of high school? McDonald's? Fuck no, it's the military, right? It was a big mistake. And Renegade does a really good job of talking about it, and I just wanted to get my reason for actually going through what I did um, as a prerequisite. As we go on, I'll continue to jump in.
Told you so. Whatever the reason you think you might have, you should not join the military. It's not what you think it is, and your time is better spent doing something else. Anything else. It's not your fault for.
He is absolutely right on all of that. It's not what you think it is, because everybody makes a big deal out of basic training, and basic training's not even the worst part about being in the military. Um, Honestly, if you're an abused kid, if you deal with physical and mental abuse and emotional or like physical and emotional abuse at home, basic training is legitimately just like working with your abusive parent. There's nothing to it. You'll go through a bunch of things because it's actually technically a more loving environment, but if you're already kind of like a broken sociopath, it's not going to be as bad as you think because they want you to be a broken sociopath in the military. Uh, they want you to be able to kill people. They want you to be able to do all of those like things. So they're going to look to break you of your normal societal roles and your normal like societal life. And that's what the basic training is supposed to be. So that's why whenever you're first off the bus, they're in your face and screaming at you. But whenever your abusive parent, you routinely smashed their head against a wall above you and made you feel small even though you were taller than them, especially whenever they have brain damage, then the verbal abuse you get in the military is nothing. Honestly. So that was that was a very fun time, right? Whenever you first get to basic training, the TI is starting to like be in your face, and all you want to do is smile because it's just like working with your dad. Yeah, I know, right? Don't feel bad for me though. I'm fine. Obviously, I'm here talking about trauma. But yeah, and if you're considering joining the military, don't worry about it. Yeah, I understand. Just don't. There are better things for you to do with your time.
Considering the military, though, don't feel bad. If you live in the United States, you have been told all your life that military service is the most noble path one can walk in life. If you live elsewhere, this still might be true, but military service in so called America has a unique vibe all its own, a fetishization of the military. We have parades, two separate federal holidays, statues in public parks, monuments in the nation's capital, war movies funded by the Department of Defense, commercials with
Wrong
Marines
button.
fighting living chess pieces, Army surplus stores in every major city, and Sergeant Slaughter on G.I. Joe.
Honestly, I love the Sarge. Sergeant Slaughter was awesome. Not the point. But no, yeah, it is weird how America fetishizes the fucking military, isn't it? Like, I still get thank you for your service, like, to this day, and I did nothing. I mean, outside of the fact that I facilitated the killing of a bunch of Afghan citizens that would probably still be dead if I didn't join the military. Um, because that's the only way I can justify the fact that people are dead because of my actions. Anyway, uh, anyway, sorry, I derailed myself. Good criticism. Way to deflect. It's weird that we do have a Veterans Day and a Memorial Day. Although I do like taking advantage of those. Please don't stop giving me free shit for the trauma that I experienced. I need that shit. I mean, I don't need it, but it's really nice to be able to go into a restaurant and get free food on Veterans Day or a free haircut. Please don't stop giving me a free haircut on Veterans Day. Please.
As explained by Pat Elder, author of Military Recruiting in the United States, our military is a scourge on the American experience. 40% of those recruited every year drop out in the first term. Musculoskeletal injuries alone account for 2 million medical encounters yearly. Desertions are rampant. Nearly half of all veterans who get out have filed injury claims with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, whose waiting line still stands at 500,000. Suicide is at or near record levels, and so are rapes and assaults.
It is ridiculous how many people kill themselves in the military. It is ridiculous how many people abdicate, and it is ridiculous how many people are sexually assaulted. I was sexually assaulted in the military. Fucking ridiculous, right? Fucking ridiculous, right? Anyway, let's continue for now. We may get more into that stuff in a bit.
But the public fails to hold it responsible for the staggering levels of human suffering it causes. Harsh criticism of every major American governmental institution, including all of the executive departments, is a deeply ingrained part of the American experience. But criticism of the military is off limits. We are conditioned to support the troops and every aspect of American militarism. This militarism, this fetishism, is the result of widespread propaganda and ushered in by willing politicians. When politicians meet veterans, they follow a script that always reads, "Thank you for your service," and God help them if they forget to say it or don't say it with enough enthusiasm. Questioning U.S. presence in other nations is considered treasonous to some. We have been conditioned to speak in euphemisms when discussing our
Yeah, this is the lexicon here is ridiculous too. God, what the fuck? Yeah, no. So a black site just already bad. That is what we have all over the world. CIA and military black sites. Ridiculous. Spreading democracy and freedom. We're using our military force to go over there and do regime change so that we can have a better position. An intervention is absolutely just a ground invasion of a different space. Enhanced interrogation was used by the Bush administration that I sadly voted for as torture because they were doing waterboarding and other things. Detainees are what we still have at Guantanamo Bay, and which is a detention camp. All of this is incredibly bad. I understand collateral damage, being wounded or killed civilians, which should never happen, but does too often. We are a terrible thing, and this is why I am not ashamed to be a veteran, but why I do think that everybody who's watching this and anybody who is thinking about joining the military, please don't. Please don't support this. Just like please don't be Catholic, don't support the raping of children. I think we can all get behind that.
wars. Global hegemony becomes spreading democracy, and invasion becomes intervention. At least when we do it, not when other nations do it. Then it is correctly called an
What they
invasion.
are, yeah.
So don't feel bad that the thought of serving in the military crossed your mind, because in addition to all of this, you probably encountered a military recruiter, and that recruiter lied to you, right to your face.
Recruiters do lie. My recruiter didn't have to lie to get me into the door. I was already sold on the prospect before I went in, because I almost joined the fucking Marines whenever I was super young, but then my dad got me out of that because I was only 17. We'll go into that later in the video, I promise. I'll expound more on that. But yeah, recruiters fucking lie. Mine did say it was going to be really easy, that I was going to be able to travel, do a bunch of, but he didn't have to lie. I was taking the first train out. Like, I wanted to go, so I was willing to take any job. I was like, no, give me something kind of mechanical that I don't have to be frontline for that's leaving tomorrow. Oh, you could be a crew chief. That's what I was. Okay, I'll be a crew chief. So I left literally 2 weeks later after MEPS. I went to MEPS. 2 weeks. I was at fucking Langley. So or not Langley. Shit. Is it Langley? It's been too long. I think Langley's the one in Virginia though. What's the Air Force recruiting or not recruiting base? Basic training. Laughlin. Sorry, gotta Google it real quick. Lackland. Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas. Yeah, 2 weeks later I was there. Went there, went to the one that's also in Texas for tech school, and then I went to fucking Panama City for my my second half at tech school, and then got stationed at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Kakalaki. Shout out to the Tar Heels or the Blue Devils. I don't care. Anyway, recruiters lie.
Military recruiters are not hapless employees handing out brochures. Recruiters are servicemen who joined a branch of the military and applied to be a recruiter afterward. Recruiters are a mix of active and inactive duty servicemen. They give you the hard sell because A. Successful recruiters stay recruiters instead of being stop-lossed back to the war zone, and B. They have quotas to meet. They don't use the word quotas in press releases and some official documents. The task is called their recruiting mission, and failure to reach the quota is called a mission gap. An Army recruiter makes approximately $68,000 a year, a pretty solid middle-class wage, whereas an Army private makes about one-third of that, approximately $23,000 a year. Recruiters are incentivized to do a good job, and a good job convincing someone to go to war involves finessing the truth. This is becoming a bigger and bigger problem because the United States military is currently suffering through a mission gap, as they call it, and it's putting even more pressure on recruiters to bend the truth. Here are some common lies that recruiters tell potential recruits.
Okay, yeah, we were going through forced downsizing whenever I was still in. Forced downsizing is whenever you have too many people in the military but can't afford to pay them, even though we keep increasing the military budget. Um, so what we were doing is we were kicking people out in record numbers and changing the physical fitness standards and other things. To get people out, but still recruiting at the same capacity. So, and that was whenever we were still doing like the Forever Wars. We were still both in Iraq and Afghanistan. This was 2006 to 2011. And then we started doing other things like Syria and blah blah blah. And so we were still ramping up, but we were still cutting back because that would leave too much money off of the table for Boeing and the other like military arms that needed it. So yeah, this is definitely a down period, but they still need people in the military, right? How else are they going to justify that budget, right? But no, it's ridiculous. It is fucking insane. Give me 1 second here. Hmm. So, which I'm sure of. Sorry, give me 1 second. Too many bots. Anyway, back to the video.
You will learn skills to use in the civilian world.
That's a pretty good
Sure,
lie.
sometimes. Like learning how to fix a Humvee might get you a job at Jiffy Lube, but not every job in the military has some one-to-one civilian equivalent.
Uh, yeah, that is absolutely right, and they won't allow or they won't certify you on like on things that'll mean that you can actually get a job on the outside. So if you need a specific like automotive uh a specific automotive maintenance certificate to work on anything at like a legitimate auto shop, you will still have to pay for and take that test. I would still need to take an airframe and power plant licensing test by Boeing to be able to work on anything in an actual airport, even though for 5 years I legitimately just worked on military hardware. Yeah, I know it's fucking insane, right? So I know how to do like, or I know how to fix flight controls for God's sake. So, but I can't do that out on a thing because they wouldn't give me the license to go away. So that's what the or that's the way the military tricks you in that respect. So yeah, that is absolutely 100% a lie. Your recruiter will tell you. And yeah, don't believe them because they will not leave you with anything marketable. In fact, they will give you a pamphlet and maybe a little bit of help on the way out to transition back into or non-military life because they're forced to. But it's I didn't take advantage of that, and that's my own fault. So I'm living with debt and a few other things that I kind of caused for myself. But that's different. That one's personal responsibility, and I'll take ownership of that.
A sniper cannot reuse that skill as a mall cop. You can leave anytime you want. If you're on active duty in a war zone and you try to leave, you may face legal recourse.
I've never heard you can leave anytime you want. Honestly, that's never been a lie I personally heard, but I would believe that they would absolutely tell you that, especially like the guard recruiters. If you're talking to a guard recruiter and they say, "Oh, it's only like 2 weeks a year," you can be called up for active service at any time. So don't believe that. Don't believe a guard recruiter, don't believe an active duty recruiter. The only people who should be believing recruiters are officers, but those people are often more educated and either have been going through ROTC since high school and joined the ROTC in college to actually become that, or have had this on their mind for a while, like they wanted to become a military pilot. So if you want to do that and you want to go to school and do all the things that mean getting that job, yeah, go ahead, do that. Fine. Join the military if you're an officer. I don't care. You've been educated and you have your own ideas of things. Fine. If you're straight out of fucking high school, or if you're 20 something, and if you don't know a damn thing, don't join the military. Don't join the. There's so much better things so many better things that you can do. I'm sorry, everything's a capitalist hellscape that kind of hates men, but it's it'll be fine. It hates everyone else worse. Like honestly, as much as the world hates straight white guys, it hates everyone else worse, especially the non-Christians. Not the point. Let's continue going.
When you join the military, you sign a contract. If it were simple to leave the military, a larger number of people would be handing in their walking papers should they be assigned to a foreign war. Failure to report to duty or continue your duties is a violation of Article 86 USMJ. What the recruiter really means is that at the end of your contract, say 4 years active duty and 4 years inactive duty, you can leave. You can leave at the end of your contract. That's generally how it works. It's not a lifetime commitment, but it is a commitment. There are circumstances in which the contract can be broken with fewer consequences, but it's not like giving your boss your 2 weeks' notice. You don't have to deploy, and you don't have to see combat. Yeah, technically you can.
Okay, that's one that actually did get told to me. That was the reason why my dad got me out of military service the first time. Um, so so the first time I almost joined the military, I was 17. I had just taken the ASVAB, and I got calls from everybody, every single person, every single military branch, right? So I had scored 82, 83, 82, and 90 something on mechanical. Because there's administrative, there's mechanical, there's electrical, and there's or engineering, and there's something else. Uh, there's four scores, and my mechanical aptitude has always been ridiculously high. Because my dad was not just a mover by trade, because that's what he did, and that's what I did for a long time with him. That's why I know what working with my father is like, is because once I turned 18, he got me an under the table job with the company that he worked for, so I was being paid cash. and we would move furniture, and that would be like 10, 12 hour days. I'd be getting paid like $12 an hour in 2004-ish, right? So so we're doing that, everything's going well, and we're we're getting over it, right? We're getting over that hump. We're doing the things. But no, he is absolutely verbally abusive if I don't take his advice the first time, or if I do something just the slightest bit wrong. I'm getting like bam slammed down on, but it's not as bad as it would be like if I was just at home and I did something to annoy him. Like every day became a don't wake daddy after my 16th birthday because he started drinking again. That type of thing. Um and anyway, sorry, off track. So I'm getting calls from all the recruiters, and I end up talking to and seeing this Marines recruiter who was saying, "Hey, you could be CBRNE, chemical, biological, nuclear response." Um, which, man, that would have been fun, right? Because it's a highly scientific job, and no, do not believe that. CBRNE is the worst fucking job, the worst job, because they're the people who have to go out if there is a spill of any kind. They're the people who are there to clean it up and like mark off like the other things. So whenever you're doing duck and cover drills, because we had to do those in the military, where you put on your fucking gas mask and you're just sitting in a fucking room doing nothing for like 12 fucking hours. The people who are outside are the people doing the CBRNE stuff. They have to know what containers look like, what everything else is, do the proper PPE, and it's ridiculous. No, don't do CBRNE. Do not join the military, but do not do CBRNE. You will be deployed, you will be doing all the other things. It's almost as bad as being a grunt. Don't do it. Don't believe them, don't do anything. Do services. Services is fine. Do logistics. Logistics is great. If you're going to do it, do those two things, because those will give you marketable skills. Those will be the ones that most transfer to other things. Because if your services, you're learning to cook, you're learning to do like maid shit, you're learning to run front counters at hotels and shit. Those will be the skills that are going to get you hired outside the military. Those are the ones that are going to get you other things. Logistics, you're going to be like the middleman. You're going to be the dude doing the warehouse stuff. You'll be able to be a stock taker somewhere. Do that. Otherwise, don't do it. Like, don't do it. If you want like marketable skills, if you want things that are going to get you in the door somewhere else, logistics and fucking services are where you want to go. If you want to get shot at, be an MP. You can just be a fucking ground troop too. If you want to be a foot soldier, be a fucking foot soldier. But don't do it. If you want to get shot at, go ahead, by all means, be a fucking idiot. But don't be a cop. Don't be a fucking troop. Don't be a grunt. Don't do any of it. Don't join the military, but definitely don't join like the dumb parts. But then again, if you have to wait up for one of those to open up, you'll be waiting a long goddamn time.
Apply to do something else, but everyone is eligible to be deployed. That should go without saying, but the amount of people who sign up for the military thinking they are
Oh right,
not
I've
going
got a
to
gesture
war
the
is
other way.
really staggering. Drones do all the fighting these days. If drones did all the fighting, the military wouldn't need many or any servicemen. War is not completely automated. This isn't that Star Trek episode with the computerized war games. This is real life. Thousands upon thousands of servicemen have died since the invention of the drone strike. The only thing drones do is make it easier for the US to bomb foreign countries and rack up untold deaths among enemy combatants and civilians.
100%. No, one of the most ghoulish things in the military whenever I was there, one of the most ghoulish things we would do is we would sit around and watch the latest drone footage or the latest missile strike footage of the people we killed that day. I never did this personally, but there was a community out there who would go out and while we were in Afghanistan and do that and go find the fucking footage. And no, I'm not. No, I don't want to see that type of death outside of like video game violence. And video game violence is a completely different thing. If you don't believe it is, then fuck you. Is that fair? It's fair to me. Oh, wrong one.
You'll get a signing bonus. Yeah, sometimes, and sometimes it just doesn't go through because of the fine print. Don't assume that the money the military claims it will give you will actually land in your bank account.
Yeah, you have no idea how many fucking people in the fight. Oh God, I have known so many people in every sort of job that I've ever been in that have just not been paid by the fucking company. It's ridiculous. The military was the worst about this. I personally never had an issue getting my check. That's me though. I never had an issue getting my check. But almost everybody else had a time of talking. Why did I never have an issue getting my check from the military? Or why did everybody else have a or not have a story? Because I don't know. Maybe they were just they saw the white name Dennis Gilbert and were like, "Oh, okay." You know, I because I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I always got paid on time, but they don't always do that. Finance messes up all the fucking time. Not everybody gets paid all the fucking time. Uh, Whenever there's a government shutdown, that's the only time that I never got paid. That was in late 2010. So in 2010, the government was experiencing a shutdown, or like in around that time. So nobody got paid for doing work, and because I wasn't getting paid, I was really starting to be like, no, fuck this. I'm just gonna fucking sit here. Why should I do anything if they're not fucking paying me, right? But that's it. But everybody else, like, they'd probably already had the fight with finance where they were getting paid for a fucking month, and they were just like, hey, over here, it's me, asshole. But yeah, no, that's what happens. The military just doesn't do a great job with their banking system, I guess. But no, recruiters lie, and if they say there's a signing bonus, sometimes they just won't pay that shit. That is absolutely true.
You can have whatever job you want in the service. You
That's a huge lie.
say you want to do a certain job, but the job is full at the time of recruitment, and the recruiter says that you will get that job eventually. What they don't tell you is that there is a long waiting list for the more desirable jobs, and you will probably be sent to do something else for the majority or even entirety of your time in the military.
Yeah, absolutely. I can speak for the Air Force. I can't speak for the other branches right now. For the Air Force, they present you with a list of jobs that you can have, and you can separate it down to your top three, and they should try and give you one of those three jobs. But yes, the longer or the ones that are most desirable, the ones that are least likely to see combat, and the ones that are technically the cushiest, like finance, are definitely the ones that are going to have a longer waiting list. So if you're going to go in, if you have to, if that's your only option for a lot of things, then you will be probably funneled to a job like a mechanic or a something that's not exactly desirable, like military police. So just be forewarned. Um, yeah, they will do anything to get you in that door.
It's only 4 years of active duty. Yeah, and then there are 4 more years of inactive duty. What the recruiter probably meant to say is that you will be serving half of that on active duty and the other half in the reserves.
Yeah, every military contract is 8 years. And it's not necessarily the reserves, but it is the reserves. So, so here it is. The 4 year contract is the one that most people will go in on, if especially if you've got like ROTC or other things in your background. But there's also a 6 year contract, but it's still an 8-year contract. You serve 6 years active and then 2 years of inactive reserve. So the that usually comes with the signing bonus and or the rank increase. So you will be going in higher than other people because you chose to do this. That's why I ended up E3 whenever I joined at first. But yeah, it is absolutely a lie if they say it's only 4 years. It's a lie if they say it's only six, but that's also because you will get traumatized, you will get other things. There are things that will happen to you if in the military um, that will make you not want to be there. Uh, the washout rate is ridiculous. Like honestly, most people won't get in, and those people who do get in desert and or kill themselves at alarming rates. And not to mention the sexual assaults. Not to mention those. We'll get back to that, I'm sure.
Active duty is pretty much what it sounds like, but inactive duty is euphemistic. You're still working for the military in one way or another, possibly as a recruiter, possibly in the reserves, but you can always be called up for active duty should the situation arise. It actually varies, and the amount of time changes depending on current laws and which branch of the military you joined, but when the recruiter says that it'll go by in a snap, he's not being honest. You can go to college for free.
This is the one that got me like fully in the door. The college is the main selling point that I went in for. So yeah, you can go to college for free. But yeah, it is not actually free. The Montgomery GI Bill is the way that you would be able to get that. And while in the service, while doing your active duty, you will be able to go to college on the government dime. But yes, the first year he's going to talk about is takes $100 from each of your paychecks, and that's easy enough. But then they also have like classes on campus and a few other things. So if you know how to structure yourself to go to like college part time and do a full time job, then that's good for it's a great thing. I've got college credits for that, but it wasn't a full semester or anything. I didn't do like a lot. Um, but yeah, if afterwards, it's still free college, but you would have to pay either out of state tuition or other things to take advantage of that. So college isn't free. College, although it should be, right? We should all just be able to get a higher education.
Free. Not exactly. First, you have to pay $100 a month for the first 12 months to qualify for the Montgomery GI Bill. Second, you have to commit to the military for a long time to qualify for the post 9/11 GI Bill.
Yeah.
Third, and most
Well,
importantly,
I got in
there
just
are
post
other
9/11, so
safer, less morally questionable ways of paying for college. More on this later. For now, let's move on to a separate but related topic.
oh boy. This one's going to be a big one, but yes, the military absolutely targets kids. After all, I was targeted, right?
In 2001, the U.S. Congress and the George W. Bush administration renewed the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, at the time called No Child Left Behind. The act stated that high schools receiving federal funds must send a complete listing of all students' directory information to local military recruiting offices.
That I didn't know was in that bill. Sorry. I didn't know that was in that bill. Like, I honestly didn't know that No Child Left Behind sent fucking shit to recruiters until I watched this video. But yes, that's fucked up. They also do have the junior ROTC program, which I also said that I was in, and yes, I was in it, and I got A's throughout it because it was a nothing class. You just had to dress up once a week and listen to military propaganda.
The act also stated that high schools must provide military recruiters access to school campuses. If schools refuse, their funding could be removed. In 2015, the United States Congress and the Barack Obama administration renewed the ESEA again, but called it the Every Student Succeeds Act. The two provisions about recruiter access from the previous version were maintained in the new version. It doesn't matter whether the president is a Democrat or Republican. Both parties are beholden to military fetishism in the US, and
Yeah, and that's a big part of our problem, isn't it? That's why 60% of our budget is military spending, or even more now because everybody in charge wants to just spend more on the military and nothing on anything else. America's a failed state.
both parties assist in the recruitment of children. As described by Brian W. Legault, author of Military Recruiting in High School From School Space to Marketplace, on a sunny school day at Chelsea High, a Black Hawk helicopter floated over the football field. Soldiers dropped ropes from either side of the chopper to rappel onto the 50-yard line, and a tank roared through the parking lot towards the football stadium. A Humvee sped behind the tank, and the whole assault force met with perfect synchronicity at the center of the field, soldier, vehicle, and weapon alike. According to the principal, the activities were not a recruiting visit. The event was a specifically scheduled Military Appreciation Day. The past 2 decades of military
Oh boy, there's a lot in that. Just, man, my high school never did anything like this, but that is a shockingly good recruiting tool. That is ridiculously fucking good. You make it look so fucking cool to all these susceptible kids, and it's ridiculous, right? That we're doing that to kids?
recruitment has had some pushback in the courts and from universities, but by and large, the military has won this conflict. Public schools are government schools, and universities often receive federal funding, and politicians just use this technicality to claim ownership of the policy to do whatever they want. The military contracts think tanks like the RAND Corporation to better assist recruitment efforts. Study after study has been made that essentially teaches the military how best to brainwash impressionable teenagers into throwing their lives away. If you have ever been
Yeah, that's that's real though. That is ridiculously real. So think about all the think about literally all the commercials you've ever seen for the military. Those are not geared towards adults, those are geared towards children. Think of all of the other like product placement and other endeavors that the military has done. Like every Marvel movie. Carol Danvers was a US Air Force pilot after all, and they have to sign off on that shit. The military had to sign off on everything done in Iron Man, everything done in a ton of other fucking Marvel movies, and a ton of everything else. And those aren't targeting adults, those are targeting kids. Those are making it cool to go into the military and die for your country. They're trying to teach you to die for a lie.
contacted by a recruiter, be aware that the pitch they give you is the culmination of decades of research into methodology and retention. The recruiter is not your friend or your big brother. The recruiter is no better than a telemarketer running a scam, only this telemarketer has a gun.
A gun and the best strategy behind him because he is the most influential person that you can meet because it's a government job that wants you right away, that wants everything about you to be better, according to him, with the smile and then the gun behind. Because the gun is cool, not because the gun can harm.
Backing of the US government and access to your high school and your private information. The military has been doing this for a long time, but they have been going even harder since the reputed War on Terror. In recent years, the military has created video games to manipulate teenagers into joining.
Yeah, that's a big problem with the Call of Duty games that I have too. So yeah, the Call of Duty games are all military propaganda, and the not the later ones like the Infinity War or like the other Black Ops ones that don't even have the official licenses to carry all the guns, instead have made their own versions that are worse looking for some reason. Um yeah, no, they're all still propaganda, and not to mention all the ones that are actively made by the military, made with support of the military, and also like War Thunder. Fuck War Thunder.
One such game is called America's Army. It's military propaganda and recruitment disguised as entertainment. Most branches of the military have esports teams to slide their way into popular culture. The Army even has a Twitch channel where its servicemen play first-person shooters and try to recruit young people who are probably there just to see some game footage. Now, you might be
Absolutely.
thinking, sure, this is super gross, but the military only recruits adults, not kids. You have to be
And we return to the fact that the first recruiter that wanted me specifically in the military wanted me in because I was 17.
18 to be in the military. Well, there's three problems with that argument. First, all those Twitch channels and video games, you can be exposed to that before you're 18. You can also be exposed to movies that the Department of Defense funds well
This is
before
why I
you're
was talking about
18.
him
Pretty
earlier.
sure every Marvel movie is rated PG-13. Second, ever heard of the JROTC? It's the Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, a federal program in many high schools and even middle schools. The U.S. Code refers to it as an organization designed to instill the values of citizenship, service to the United States, and personal responsibility.
It does nothing. This ROTC is definitely a lot more strict than the one that I was in. But mine was Air Force, and we were only expected to do marching because we were inner city. So we learned how to march in time and do columns and shit as our PE equivalent because I was in band as well, which was getting its marching taken away from it. So instead of fumbling around on a field playing a fucking thing in a parade, we were instead just sitting down and playing classical music on fucking trombone. So I joined ROTC to just start marching and walking around. I wish we were doing things like this. This would have been fun.
But it's really just early recruitment. Children in the JROTC don't wear citizenship uniforms, they wear military uniforms. Somewhere between 30% to 50% of JROTC children eventually join the military. The numbers tend to vary depending on who is doing the answering, but even if it's only 30%, that should tell you the real purpose of the JROTC. Third, you can actually be recruited.
Yeah. No, the real purpose of the JRTC is definitely just a funnel to the military. And that so many people that I knew that were in ROTC went in is not a surprise, because I did myself.
Into the military at age 17. Before you can even vote for the government that will send you off to die, you can be tricked into signing up for that war. Also, even though 17 is the age limit, the military recruiters are there in high schools, and if you think they never talk to freshmen and sophomores to prime the pump for later, you're
I've seen him
fooling
do it.
yourself. Children don't wear badges with their ages on them when they walk down the halls. How is the recruiter even to know? If you're a teenager considering joining the military because it seems so cool, I assure you that you only think that because the military has been targeting you with ads, video games, and recruiters at your high school career day. They are taking advantage of you because you don't have enough life experience to know that there are better options out there and that the military is not all it's cracked up to be. If you're a teenager thinking about this, stop thinking about this. Take it from a guy of 40 years, old enough to be your father. In fact, I am your father.
He goes a little hard here, but no, definitely don't. As a person who's gone through this, do not. As a person who was probably actually helped by the military as a person, as a like functioning adult, don't do it. It's the worst. Don't. If you are a functioning person, do not join the military. If you're a sociopath, join the military. It's a great place for you. They want you.
Don't join the military. So, what will happen if you actually join the military? What's the worst that can happen, right? If everything does go smoothly and you come home from combat without any serious injuries, you will still be subject to being pulled back into the war zone through loopholes like stop loss.
Scratch that. It's not you will, it's you could. Depending on your job, depending on what people are trying to be refilled, depending on like who's going where, you absolutely could be stop lost. This is absolutely true. So this is again why I say don't be a cop, don't be a fucking grunt, don't do any of the footwork, and I don't care how long it takes. Get into logistics or services, you will be happy. That's if you're going to go into the military. Those are the only two occupations you should be looking for. It's all going to be bad. All going to be bad because you can and will be deployed in a or with a gun in your hand if you are still in one of those places because they will put you out on the front line if they don't have enough people. As a fucking like crew chief, as a person who worked on the jets, I was legitimately one of the last people in line that would have actually been going out there. But if you're in logistics, if you're in services, you will be deployed. You may not be deployed um to actually shoot people. You may not be actually on the front, but because you're the person who can cook, or because you're the person who knows how to categorize things and let things out, you will be deployed. But you will be deployed in a safer space. Don't join motor pool. Motor pool, if you're going to be in there, you're going to be deployed. You're going to be on the front because you're the person who fixes the tank and or the Humvee that's going to go in first. So, motor pool, beware. Crew chief, one of the safest ones, especially if you're on. And the other thing that I'm going to say is probably join the Navy, because the Navy don't have to sit on the front. The Navy have to deal with their own different sort of warfare and stress. You have to be on a legitimate ship for 6 months out of the year, or 6 weeks out of the year, something like that. You will be deployed, but your deployment's going to be different. And that's where like a lot of people get sexually assaulted too. Although I did get sexually assaulted again. We'll get to that. Um, yes, this this is a real thing. Don't join the military, but if you do, here are some safe options.
A euphemism for a backdoor draft. The US hasn't instituted the regular draft in a long time due to its widespread unpopularity during the Vietnam War, so they squeeze every minute of combat time possible from their recruits. These outcomes are the best case scenarios, and they are still pretty terrible. What about scenarios besides the best case? Well, you will probably be injured, possibly severely. Almost 50% of US servicemen are injured every year. According to the Defense Centers for Public Health, that is over 2 million medical encounters.
Okay, I've got to do something here because it's funny. Not because it's good, but yeah, I technically am a part of this injury statistic. But not because of anything. I'm a very cautious person. I've never broken a bone in my goddamn life. But my first stitches ever were in the military. The first time I ever had an injury that I would call an injury was in the military, and it was for the dumbest reason. A wrench slipped, caught me in the tooth, and split my and put my tooth through my lip, like right here, right, like here. Okay, so yeah, I got stitches on my lip, like right there, because I put a tooth through it because a wrench slipped and popped me in the face. I am an injured serviceman. I am a part of that 2 million statistic, but not for a good reason. Sorry, that's just one of those things, you know.
You might be thinking, oh, less than 50%, so I probably won't be injured. No, because again, that's each year, and you signed up for 8. You have to play those 50-50 odds every year, and it is statistically
He's half right. Again, I wasn't for stopped or for I wasn't pulled back, so we'll drop that right off the bat. Okay, so there are people that do need to do this, like absolutely for 8 years. There are certainly people. If you're in the army and you are a soldier, like if you are just the base troop, right? This probably happened to you. You had to fight that and win that fucking coin flip every year for 8 years. You deserve respect. I'm sorry that a lot of your friends didn't make it. But most people in the military will not be 8 years of this. It will be 4 and/or 6. And there are people who are crazy enough to do this for 20. But those people were lifers anyway and were going to do this for the retirement in the first place. Because there are definitely people like that who are doing their time because that's what their parents did, that's what their family did, and that's the way it's going to be. They're military men, and that's the way they're going to live. And I respect that in a way, but you're fucking dumb. Sorry, it's the truth. Back to the video.
bonkers that you could actually get through your entire contract without an injury. Now, admittedly, not all of these injuries are catastrophic, but a lot of them are. Many of these injuries result in permanent disabilities that you will have to deal with for the rest of your life. Don't count on your military health insurance and the Office of Veteran Affairs to take care of you all that well either. They are massively underfunded and understaffed because Congress loves funding war but seems to hate funding the health of people that they have tricked into going to war.
That is also mostly true. I I am incredibly fortunate. I say that because I recognize the place that I'm in now and the status that I have, and the fact that I'm like here talking to you as like an actual streamer, as a person with a job that allowed me to do this and say, hey, look, I know we normally play video games around here, but I want to talk about myself. I want to talk about these things. I want to express like all of this. I want to do what I can to like make a message or make something out of my own experiences because it's hard to do and it's hard to want to do, especially like all that young trauma that I still haven't like parsed and gone through, but I know is there. Because I don't like touching that ball. You know, I don't feel like crying like 6 times a day. Um, and it's difficult just to be like open, honest, and want to talk in general, especially about like my own past. This was the best part of my life, the military, because it got me out of the abusive situation into a space where I could just be a little trash goblin. I got to be the person I wanted to be, which was a fucking hermit, and I loved it because I got to talk to the people I wanted to talk to every day. I got to go to work and make a living, even though I really didn't fucking like what I was doing. And I got to just be a person away from everybody that didn't have to do whatever. Although I did have my first panic attack in the military, but that's because I'm autistic and not because I knew anything else. Because plans were changing fast, and so everything came crashing in around me, and I was certain that something was wrong, and nothing was. So I literally, because I had a panic attack, stayed home from a trip to the city by the fucking base, Raleigh, um, because I had to go to my room and call everyone I knew to make sure that nothing was wrong because I had a feeling that something was just legitimately fucking wrong. Like I cried after that, and it's I didn't know I was autistic till I was 33. We'll get to that, I guess, another time. That's yeah, that's for another day or another time. Yeah, we'll get to it sometime this time, but it's not part of the military.
There is a really good chance that you will end up disabled and have to tell your story about why you're in a wheelchair to every nosy civilian who wants to feel better about themselves by thanking you for your service. It will be exhausting and it will never end. It gets worse.
That is absolutely the truth. Whenever people find out that I was a veteran of the military, they will absolutely say thank you for your service. I don't want you to do that. Do not ever thank me for my service. I didn't do anything thankworthy. I sat down, I played video games, I rigged flight controls so that people could bomb civilians. Don't thank me for that.
Approximately 1 in 4 women serving in the military reports that they were sexually assaulted, typically by other servicemen. Their superior
That is rampant. Women aren't the only people sexually assaulted in the military. Men will absolutely sexually assault anybody whenever they're alone and they want to do it. Whenever I was in the Air Force, whenever I was deployed in my like fourth year of service, one of my coworkers did or grabbed my dick on a regular basis because he thought it was funny and he knew that he could. He would do it to other people too. He would just reach over to them and grab the head of their penis in what he called the C clamp because he was just doing this, grabbing your dick. And he loved to brag about how big my dick is. Yes, this is the story. And no, no, that's not okay. If you thought that was okay before now, no, you're sexually assaulting people. And whenever he says sexually assault here, he means the R word. The one that I'm not allowed to say on YouTube and I don't want to say here. Yes, absolutely. Women should not go into the military, not because it is a man's game and that no, it's because you will get assaulted.
superiors often try to conceal sex crimes, which means that these women rarely get justice. And then there's the possibility of being killed in action. Don't let anyone tell you that that doesn't really happen anymore because of drones or whatever. It still happens, and it could happen a lot more in the future. Experts say that the United States is on the brink of 2 separate wars that could result in ground troops.
That's about right. The US has the US has spent 200 and some odd years at war. We've had 12 years where we were not involved in some kind of war. We've had 12 years at peace with the rest of the world. America, what the fuck?
I'm sure everyone in the first half of 2001 who signed up for the military thought they were safe too. If yet another war requiring ground troops breaks out in the next 5 to 10 years, like some are predicting, and your contract is for 8 years, I don't like your chances. Even if you get through your contract physically unscathed, your psychological damage will probably last the rest of your life. Post-traumatic stress disorder is common for veterans, and good luck getting civilians to relate to your hardship. The suicide rate of servicemen during their service is much higher than average, and the suicide rate following their service remains high. You may hear all of this, and you might think, I don't care, I'll do whatever it takes to defend my country. But here's the thing, that's not what you're doing.
All right, so let's give a quick talk about PTSD. Yes, I do have some form of shell shock. Um, I was mortared whenever I was in Afghanistan, and so yeah, the sound of explosions are still really fucking triggering to this day. I really hate 4th of July. I'm not exactly a holiday person or in the first place, but no, no, don't. It's terrible. I fucking hate it. Um, I also have depression, but that's like a thing. Um, yeah. It's part of the purpose of the masking. That's part of the purpose of like everything else. You've got to be functional. That's the only thing that you're allowed to be. Hi, I'm Eric. I'm a worker. That is what I am allowed to be.
You may be put in a situation in which you must kill another human being, and it's not something that is easy to get over and just dismiss. You may also be put in a situation in which your commanding officer orders you to commit an act that constitutes a war crime. The US commits war crimes at an alarming rate, and though there are almost never any legal consequences for these war crimes, your participation will be something that you will almost certainly remember for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and this is what I think the biggest like trauma thing is, because if you look at people like the American Sniper or like the other people who are like in Blackwater or other things, they have definitely this kind of thing because they were taught to kill, and told to do the worst things imaginable. And so they just don't really deal with it. Instead, they go into other things because this is what they know and this is what they do. This is who they are now, right? So it's really sad. It's really fucking sad what we do to our military personnel that are just specifically the troops, like the people on the grounds, the soldiers on the ground. Those people are not given any sort of respect.
Most victims during war in the 21st century are actually civilians, not enemy combatants. So
That's actually true too, because we don't care about our targets. We don't do full intel, or we don't do like everything. So we'll target legitimately one person at a wedding and drop cluster ammo on it and destroy the entire wedding. Like families are eradicated, children are eradicated because of what we just dropped it. We just did that. Oh, didn't need to
soldiers are
mute.
supposed to fight each other doesn't entirely add up when you are responsible for the deaths of civilians. As explained in the book 10 Excellent Reasons Not to Join the Military, the reality of torture and other war crimes presents a moral challenge to all young men and women considering a career in military service. War crimes in Iraq are not mere aberrations, they emanate from official policies regarding the aims and conduct of the occupation. It is official policy, for example, to use cluster bombs in populated areas. Soldiers and Marines merely carry out the policy. It was official policy under Operation Iron Hammer to put barbed wire around villages, to bulldoze crops, to bomb homes, and to hold families in jail until they released insurgent information.
So I didn't know anything about this again until I watched this video. Uh, Super incredible. Like I would never have read that. But yeah, and this is a part of the reason why I don't think I'm a good person. This right here, because I was part of a superstructure, part of an apparatus that did this for a living, that did all of this, everything that's described there and more. We still operate the black site that's fucking Guantanamo Bay, the detention center. We still operate it. So anytime that somebody was tortured there, I was a part of that, technically, because I supported that structure and I was in that system. Because I fixed those jets, I'm culpable for the people that those pilots killed. Because I worked on that base, because I was a part of that structure, anybody who was shot technically because of me. Not wholly because of me, but because I existed, because I was there, because I was a part of something that did that to them.
The United States military serves the economic interests of the nation and diminishes the economic prosperity of other nations in a massive international and long-standing effort to maintain global hegemony or supremacy. Wars are generally fought over resources, over scarcity, but a superpower starting a war with a much smaller, poorer country is not doing so because of scarcity. The
No.
superpower does not do this because it has a lack of wealth. The superpower does this to hoard more wealth and deepen the unequal relationships between them, to enact trade deals that disproportionately benefit the superpower. Today, there are fewer superpowers, the US being chiefest among them. The US must maintain this status by deepening the disparity of poor nations and rich nations. They do this through a combination of military force and their disproportionate voting power in the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. So how does all this work exactly? Well, the US does not invade a
So yeah, all they say in here is absolutely like ridiculously correct. So we use our military force to get people to submit to our market forces now more than anything because we will go in and topple a regime and put in a dictator for life or try and establish a democracy that would be friendly to us, but we never succeed in anything except for destabilizing everything and making everything worse. But the IMF and the World Bank are also exerting our own soft power, blah, blah, blah. Look up other people. They know more about economics and shit than I do.
country and just load a bunch of barrels of oil on the back of a truck. In order for the US and its allies to get a good deal on oil, the US maintains a good relationship with Saudi Arabia. In return, the US arms the Saudis with weapons. That way, the Saudi
Which they then drop on Yemen.
Arabian military can drop bombs on Yemen and annihilate their civilian population. But
Because some reason Saudis just really want Yemen. Fucking hate it. Fucking hate it. And they're on the UN Security Council. Can we get them off, please?
if the US does not have a good relationship with a nation but needs their resources, they follow a plan of invasion, installation, and coercion. First, an invasion, or intervention. Second, the US installs a regime that is friendly to their interests. Third, the US essentially forces that regime to sign trade deals that benefit the US.
Which is actually why this accord, the Iraq peace, or yeah, the Iraq peace deal that we just, or Iran, the Iran peace deal that we signed under Obama was such a big deal because we were legitimately giving them back their own money to not do the thing we wanted them to do, and at the same time, that's still really shitty thing that we did to them.
Instead of the people of their own nation. Through both the aforementioned diplomatic process and the aforementioned coercive process, the US creates subordinate regimes and client states in an effort to maintain this global hegemony. It's significantly more complicated than that, but the headline is this: it's all about money. Anyone
Yes.
telling you that the US is in the Middle East, Africa, and everywhere else because they are spreading freedom is lying right to your face. I know you wanted to believe that joining the military was something heroic or that you wanted to defend your country, but that's not what is really going on. I'm sorry.
No, he's absolutely right. It is not what's
So,
going
what
on.
can you do instead of joining the military? Well, you can choose to do literally anything else.
That's it. That's really it. Live your life. Do something productive with yourself because honestly, you now have more power in the labor market than you ever have before. It would still be nice if we all had collective ownership of things, but we'll work towards that, I promise. I'll be there with you. I'll fight. After all, I was trained to, right? But no, do literally anything else. Join up with a civil activist or do something in your community. Fucking work at McDonald's. Do anything else. Anything.
Can't afford college? Search for scholarships, grants. Contact Federal Student Aid. Ask about tuition assistance, tax credits for students. If all else fails, take out a student loan. Yeah, I know student loans suck, but not as much as 8 years of dodging improvised explosive devices.
Which is a grim reality for a majority of the people who actually sign up for the Army specifically and or the Marines. Don't join those if you're going to join
Do you come from a military family and you want to make your parents proud? You're an adult now, and you get to choose your own path. The best part about being old enough to join the military is being able to choose not to join the military.
All right, so here's the other thing. If you can't follow that advice, what I mean is if you are in a military family that will literally disown you or kick you the fuck out of their house at 18, if you are a part of a place that would make you infirm in some way, do not follow that advice. Go into the military. It's it'll be better for you overall. Don't don't just fucking don't just join though. Don't if you are not going to be forced, if you are not going to be insolvent, if you are not a desperate person, if you are not a sociopath, if you are not someone who really enjoys hurting people, don't join the military. Do anything else.
I got news for you. Your parents are going to be disappointed in a lot of things you do as an adult, and none of it will matter because you're the adult now. Your parents don't get to decide
Right there.
what you do with your life. Want to make some money? You can earn more working retail than as a private in the Army, and you have.
As a private, yes. As a private first class, not exactly. As a fucking, once you get up to like buck sergeant and shit, you're fine. But because I was making 25K a year at least in 2006.
Almost no chance of committing a war crime unless you work at Hobby Lobby. Want to feel tough and independent? Go to the gym, hike a trail, go mountain climbing.
Absolutely hike trails, go mountain climbing. The gym. I mean, if you just want to be like a fit person, absolutely go to the gym. But uh, do, do anything else.
Go on adventures. You
Yes.
can have all of that without joining the military, and you will have far less risk of PTSD. Want to see the world? There are educational recruiting agencies that will hire almost anyone to teach English in a foreign country.
Actually, very, very true.
I lived in South Korea and Montenegro as a teacher. I had teaching experience before then, but the truth is that the main requirement for these jobs is being able to speak English.
Yeah, if you can speak the national language too, it might be a benefit, but just, yeah, being able to speak English is absolutely the only requirement for being able to teach English generally.
There are other ways to see the world too, like taking a road trip to Canada or Mexico, and both of those trips last about a week, not 8 years. You are young, and you want to spend the best years of your life getting shot so that the government can hoard more cobalt? You only have so many years of your prime. Don't join the military. Took some time, but we pointed out.
All right, yes, no, 100%. I share that sentiment wholeheartedly. Thank you, Leon, for making the 20-minute video that I ended up adding next to nothing to. No, I'm kidding. Um, appreciate the message, and I'm glad that I could actually add to it from my own perspective. But anyway, yes, don't join the military.